The luau was in full swing. Bright torches burned under the alien night sky, and the scent of roasted meat filled the air. Laughter and music echoed as humans and aliens shared stories. But when an alien diplomat raised his glass and asked, "Why do humans celebrate war victories so much?" the mood shifted. An old Terran officer named Captain Rhodes leaned back in his chair, smiling slightly. He had been waiting for this question. Because some wars, he said, are not just battles. They are warnings. The aliens around the fire leaned in as Rhodes took a sip of his drink. "Ever heard of the Corton War?" he asked. The alien diplomat frowned. "No records of such a war exist." Rhodes chuckled. "Exactly. Let me tell you why. The Forgotten War, the Cortans were a nightmare. Not warriors, something worse. They didn't conquer planets, they erased them. They didn't enslave, they exterminated. When the Cortans arrived at the edge of the Terran Republic, there was no diplomacy, no warning. They simply wiped out the first human colony they found. Terran fleets were sent to stop them, but every battle ended in horror. The Cortans had weapons that didn't just destroy ships, they unmade them, turning metal and flesh into dust. Entire human fleets disappeared in moments. The Republic panicked. No one had ever fought an enemy like this. Then, the Cortans made a mistake. They sent a transmission. Humanity will be erased. Your worlds will burn. Your name will be forgotten. They didn't realize that humans don't break under fear. They don't run. They adapt. And when pushed to the edge, they do something worse than fight. They learn. The Turning Point human scientists worked day and night to crack the Corthan weapons. Every fallen ship, every lost battle gave the Republic more data. And then, finally, they found something. A weakness. The Corthan weapons weren't magic. They were technology. And if something is technology, humans can break it. The next battle was different. The Corthans fired their unmaking weapons, but this time, nothing happened. The human fleet kept coming. And for the first time in history, the Corthans retreated. The war no one talks about, but humanity didn't stop there. The Republic launched Operation Scorched Sky, a campaign designed to erase the Corthans from existence. No mercy. No negotiations. Every Corthan ship was hunted down. Every planet they touched was burned. The Republic turned into something else, not just warriors, but executioners. The war ended not with a treaty, not with peace, but with silence. The Corthans were gone. Every record of them deleted. Every survivor hunted. And the Republic made sure no one would ever remember their name. Because some things are too dangerous to be remembered. Back to the luau, Captain Rhodes finished his drink. The fire crackled, and the aliens around him were silent. The diplomat swallowed. But if you erase them, how do you still remember? Rhodes leaned forward, his eyes cold. Because some of us were there. A hush fell over the gathering. The fire flickered, casting long shadows. Someone shifted uncomfortably. The diplomat cleared his throat. And if someone were to find records of the Cortans? Rhodes didn't blink. They wouldn't. Silence. Some wars are not just battles. They are warnings. And some things are better left forgotten. The luau was alive with music and laughter. Humans and aliens sat around the great fire, sharing food and stories. Among them was an old human historian, Professor Alden, his eyes full of memories. A young alien diplomat, curious about human history, leaned forward. "Tell me," he said, "what is the greatest mystery in Terran history?" Alden smiled, but there was something in his eyes, something cold. "Ever heard of Novus Hope?" he asked. The alien shook his head. "No." "Was it a battle?" Alden's smile faded. "No. It was a colony. A thriving, beautiful colony. And one day, it simply disappeared." The fire crackled, and the crowd around him grew silent. "Disappeared?" the alien asked. Alden nodded. No distress signals. No wreckage. No bodies. It was just gone. A colony on the edge of known space, built on a lush green world. It had everything advanced technology, strong defenses, and over 100,000 people living in peace. Then, one day, the Republic lost contact. At first, no one panicked. Signals were often delayed in deep space. But as days turned into weeks, the silence became unsettling. The Republic sent a ship to investigate. What they found was impossible. Nova's Hope was empty. The buildings were untouched. The food was still fresh on the tables. Personal belongings were right where they should be. Even the power was still running. But the people? Gone. Not a single trace of the colony's population remained. The the rescue team searched every house, every corridor. They checked security footage, data logs, and transmission records. Everything was normal until the last recorded message. A woman's voice, shaky and terrified, whispered, "They're here. They're everywhere." We shouldn't have listened. We shouldn't have the message cut off. The logs showed no signs of attack. No enemy ships, no explosions, no alarms. One moment, the colony was thriving. The next, everyone was gone. The strangest part? No signs of struggle. No footprints leading away. No forced doors. It was as if the colonists had just stood up and vanished. The forbidden transmission. The Republic declared Nova's Hope a restricted zone. But some secrets refused to stay buried. Years later, a deep space probe picked up a transmission, a single, repeating message. "We are still here." The signal came from Nova's Hope. But when a ship arrived to investigate, the colony was still empty. No new signs of life. No footprints in the dust. Only one thing had changed. The dining tables, the same ones with the untouched food, were now set for dinner. The crew left without asking more questions. The Republic erased Nova's Hope from official records. They warned explorers to stay away, and for a long time no one dared to return. Until now. Back to the luau, Professor Alden finished his drink. The aliens around him were pale, their curiosity replaced with fear. The diplomat hesitated. "And do you think they're still there?" Alden's eyes darkened. "I don't think anything." "I know." The diplomat swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Alden leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because a week ago, another transmission came through." The alien held his breath. "What did it say?" Alden's voice was calm, but his words sent chills down their spines. "Come back." The fire crackled. No one spoke. Somewhere in the distance, the wind howled, carrying whispers that weren't really there. Some mysteries are never meant to be solved, and some places should stay forgotten. The luau was filled with laughter and the scent of grilled meat. Humans and aliens sat together, sharing stories of past battles and alliances. A xenohistorian, a tall reptilian being named Valtor, smirked as he took a sip of his drink. "Humans have always been lucky," he said. "You win wars because fortune favors you." Across the fire, a young Terran officer, Commander Hayes, raised an eyebrow. "Luck," he repeated, his voice calm. Valtor nodded. "Your republic should have fallen many times. But somehow, you always survive." Hayes leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Survival has nothing to do with luck," he said. "It has to do with what happens when you betray us." Valtor scoffed. "And what happens?" Hayes's face darkened. "We never forget, and we never forgive." The fire crackled as the humans around the circle grew quiet. They already knew what story was coming. The story of the greatest betrayal in the history of the Terran Republic. The alliance that turned the Republic once had an ally, the Draelzar, a proud and powerful empire. For decades, they fought side by side with humanity, pushing back enemies and securing peace across the galaxy. The humans trusted them. They never should have. One day, without warning, the Draelzar fleets turned their guns toward their closest ally, toward Earth itself. The attack was brutal. The first wave crippled Terran defenses, and entire colonies burned. Billions of humans screamed into the void before their signals were lost forever. The Republic was caught off guard. It wasn't an invasion. It was extermination. The Battle of Sol-Dralzar believed they already won. Their fleet surrounded the Sol system, ready for the final strike on Earth. They sent a message to the Republic, expecting surrender. Instead, they received just 4 words. "We are still here." And then, the Republic struck back. Human fleets, battered but unbroken, launched a desperate counterattack. The fighting was brutal. Cities on Mars and Luna turned to dust. Space stations shattered into debris. But the Republic did not fall, because humans fight differently. They don't just defend, they end wars. The price of betrayal. The Dralzar soon realized their mistake. Humanity didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with vengeance. The Republic gathered its forces. Every surviving warship, every soldier, every scientist, everyone. And then, they did what no species had ever done before. They turned a war into a hunt. No mercy. No treaties. The Dralzar begged for negotiations. The Republic did not respond. One by one, their fleets vanished. Their colonies went silent. Their homeworld, once the heart of a mighty empire, burned in the light of 1,000 nuclear suns. The Dralzar were erased from the stars. Back to the Lua. Commander Hayes finished his drink. The fire crackled in the heavy silence. Voltor's smirk was gone. "You wiped them out?" the alien asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hayes met his gaze. "We didn't start the war," he said, "but we ended it." Voltor swallowed hard. "And if another ally betrayed you?" Hayes leaned forward, his voice cold. "Then history will repeat itself." The fire flickered. Somewhere in the distance, the wind howled. And in that moment, every alien in the circle understood betraying the Republic is never an option. The Luo was in full swing. The warm glow of firelight danced on the faces of humans and aliens as they shared stories over food and drink. Laughter filled the air, but when an alien scholar named Koresh spoke, the mood shifted. "I have studied human war records," Koresh said. "You are brutal in battle. But there is one thing I do not understand." Commander Graves, an old Terran officer, raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Koresh leaned forward. "Why did you spare the Vokari?" The fire crackled. A few humans exchanged glances. The aliens around them watched closely. Graves took a slow sip of his drink. "Because some enemies are worse when spared?" The wind carried his words into silence. Then he began his story. The war with the Vokari were not conquerors. They were not warriors. They were something worse. They hunted. They moved through the galaxy like a plague, devouring entire planets, stripping them of life. Not just humans, everything. They didn't enslave. They didn't negotiate. They simply took. When the war began, humanity fought like hell. Every battle was a desperate stand, every victory paid for in blood. But the Vokari didn't break. They didn't fear death, because they didn't believe they could lose. And for a time, neither did we. The final battle of the war reached its peak at Draken 4, the last Vokari stronghold. The Republic had lost too much, suffered too long. This was humanity's final move. No negotiations. No surrender. Extermination. Terran warships surrounded the Vokari homeworld. Bombers darkened the sky. The command was simple: erase them. But then something happened. The Vokari did something they had never done before. They begged. They pleaded for mercy, for survival. They had never feared death until now. And against all logic, against all the hatred burning in humanity's heart, the Republic spared them. The mistake: the Vokari were placed under strict control. Their fleets were dismantled. Their people were monitored. The Republic believed mercy had won. But mercy does not change monsters. For 20 years, the Vokari waited. They played the part of the broken enemy. They learned. They adapted. And then, one night, without warning, they struck. Republic outposts went dark. Entire colonies vanished overnight. The Vokari had rebuilt, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the moment to betray their saviors. And this time, they weren't just hunting. They were taking revenge. The price of Mercith Republic was caught off guard. The enemy they had spared had become stronger, smarter, deadlier. It was a mistake that cost billions of lives. But humans only make mistakes once. The counterattack was swift. This time, there were no negotiations, no last chances. The Valkyrie were erased. Every ship, every world, every last trace of their existence gone. Back to the Luo commander. Graves set down his drink. The fire burned low, casting long shadows. Koresh's throat tightened. So that's why Graves nodded. That's why we don't always show mercy. Koresh swallowed hard. And if another enemy begs for mercy? Graves's voice was cold. We remember the Valkyrie. Silence settled over the gathering. The fire flickered, and for a brief moment, the night seemed darker than before. Because some enemies should never be spared. And humanity never forgets. The luau was alive with celebration. Laughter echoed across the beach, the firelight flickering against the waves. Humans and aliens sat together, sharing food and stories. A young alien officer, curious about Terran military history, leaned forward. "Tell me," he said, "have you ever lost a battle?" Across the fire, Captain Reed, an old war veteran, paused. His expression darkened. "Not a battle," he said. "But we lost a squad. And we never found out why." The alien tilted his head. "What happened?" Reed exhaled slowly. The fire crackled as he spoke. It started with a distress signal, one that should not have existed. The phantom signal years ago, in the dark corners of the galaxy, the Republic received a transmission. A distress call. It came from Outpost Vega 7, an old Terran station that had been abandoned for decades. There was no one there. No crew. No ships. The station was dead. And yet, the signal was real. The Republic sent a squad to investigate. Squad Echo 12. They were the best battle-hardened soldiers, experienced in deep space operations. It was supposed to be a simple mission. Land. Investigate. Report back. But they never returned. The last transmission. At first, everything seemed normal. Echo 12 landed on Vega 7. Their first report confirmed what was expected. The station was still abandoned. The logs were decades old, covered in dust. Then, things changed. The next transmission was strange. The squad's commander, Lieutenant Parker, sounded tense. "Something's not right here." Minutes later, another message came through. "We're not alone." Then silence. The Republic tried to re-establish contact. No response. No distress signal. Just nothing. Squad Echo 12 had vanished. The rescue mission, a second team, was sent to find them. A full platoon of soldiers. Heavily armed. Ready for anything. They landed on Vega 7 and searched every inch of the station. No signs of a fight. No blood. No bullet casings. No bodies. It was as if Squad Echo 12 had never been there. But then, deep inside the station, they found something. A single helmet. It belonged to Lieutenant Parker. Inside the helmet's comm system, there was one last recorded message. The final words, the voice on the recording was shaky, filled with terror. "Not human static. Can't escape more static." And then one final whisper. "They're inside our heads." The message ended. The rescue team searched for hours, but found nothing else. No footprints. No fingerprints. No evidence of what had happened. They left Vega 7 empty-handed. The Republic declared the station off-limits. It was erased from records. The system was marked as dead space. No one ever spoke about Echo 12 again. And no one ever went back. Back to the luau. Captain Reed finished his drink. The fire burned lower, casting long shadows. The alien officer swallowed hard. "What do you think happened to them?" Reed looked at the dark waves, his voice quiet. "I think they're still out there." The alien frowned. "But they're dead, right?" Reed didn't answer. Because, sometimes, being dead is not the worst thing that can happen. And some squads never come back.